Jaya. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Gopijana Ballabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopijana Ballabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Banachari Jamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Ballabha Girivardhari Gopijana Ballabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Banachari Yamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayam Vishnupad Paramhamsa Parigabhacharya Satarasati Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Aboy Charanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Nantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Prem Sikaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Vibhajya Navadatmanam Manavim Suratotsukam Ramam Niramayan Reme Varshapugan Muhurtpat Varshapugan Muhurtavat Vibhajya Navadatmanam Manavim Suratotsukam Ramam Niramayan Reme Varshapugan Muhurtavat. Nashapagan Muhurtavat. Bhaktanam Manavim Suratatsukam Nyamayam Rime. Nivaja Navadadnam Manavim Suratatsukam Ramam Niramayam Reme Varshapugan Muhurtavat. Vibhajya, having divided, Navada, into 9, Atmanam, himself, Manavim, the daughter of Manu, Devahuti, Surata, for sex life, Utsukam, who was eager, Ramam, to his wife, Niramayan, giving pleasure, Reme, he enjoyed, Vashapugan, for many years, Muhurtavat, like a moment. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. After coming back to his hermitage, he divided himself into 9 personalities, just to give pleasure to Devahuti, the daughter of Manu, who was eager for sex life. In that way he enjoyed with her for many, many years, which passed just like a moment. I'll repeat that. Not everybody's got a phone. Please repeat. After coming back to his hermitage, he divided himself into 9 personalities, just to give pleasure to Devahuti, the daughter of Manu, who was eager for sex life. In that way, he enjoyed with her for many, many years, which passed just like a moment. Here the daughter of Swayambhuva Manu, Devahuti, is described as Suratotsuka. After travelling with her husband all over the universe, in Mount Meru and the beautiful gardens of the heavenly kingdoms, she naturally became sexually stimulated, and in order to satisfy her sexual desire, Kadama Muni expanded himself into 9 forms. Instead of 1, he became 9, and 9 persons had sexual intercourse with Devahuti for many, many years. It is understood that the sexual appetite of a woman is 9 times greater than that of a man. That is clearly indicated here. Otherwise, Kadama Muni would have had no reason to expand himself into 9. Here is another example of yogic power. As the Supreme Personality of Godhead can expand himself in millions of forms, a yogi can also expand up to 9 forms, but not more than that. Another example of that is Sobari Muni. He also expanded himself into 8 forms. But however powerful a yogi may be, he cannot expand himself into more than 8 or 9 forms. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, however, can expand himself into millions of forms. Anantarupa, innumerable, countless forms, as stated in the Brahma Samhita. No one can compare to the Supreme Personality of Godhead by any conceivable, energetic manifestation of power. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, and my spiritual master, he forced my eyes open with the torchlight of transcendental knowledge, for I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. So, contemplating what to say on this verse, my prudish Western background kicked in, and I thought, oh, it's all about sex. But we're brahmacharis, we're practicing renunciation, we're not supposed to talk about sex. And here it is, smack bang in the middle of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is all about self-realization, about going back home, back to Godhead. We have the dalliance of the daughter of the Emperor of the Universe with one of the topmost sages, Kadama Muni, back in his hermitage or still in their aerial mansion. 9 forms, unlimited sex for many, many years, which passed just like a moment. What's going on? This is a constant feature of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam study and Srimad Bhagavatam being non-different from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, understanding of Krishna is like a roller coaster ride. What we're being exposed to is bhakti, devotional service. Bhakti is not straightforward. It's not predictable, inconceivable. What's the word? Achintya. Inconceivable? Achintya. Hard to understand. There's an example, it's like the back leg of a dog. It's crooked. Crooked is another word. Inconceivable, crooked. Bhakti's. So, what's going on here? 2 of the main words in Srila Prabhupada's purport are Surat Totsukha and Anantarupa. Utsuka. Utsuka means eager. And Surat means sex life. Anantarupa is coming from the Brahma Samhita, referring to Govinda, as realized by Lord Brahma. He expands himself into unlimited forms. Krishna expands himself into unlimited forms. Where do we see that most popularly depicted? The unlimited forms of Krishna. That's not necessarily unlimited. Rasa Leela. What's Rasa Leela all about? Conjugal love. Dancing. For how long? 1 kalpa. A night of Lord Brahma. That's pretty long, unending. So here, Kadama Muni and Devahuti, they're enjoying for Muhurtavat, what seemed like a moment, but for hundreds of years. A long time. So what's the difference? Krishna's enjoying, we're trying to enjoy. But just like on the heavenly planets, people live for a long time, 10,000 years. Krishna lives for, the lifespan of Krishna is described as unlimited. That we can relate to him that when Mahavishnu lies down on the causal ocean, from the pores of his skin, as he breathes out, universes appear. And as he breathes in, they go back into his body. That for him, for Mahavishnu, is 3/4 of a second. It's going on all the time. For us, universes going in and going out. The time span, the difference in scale is just inconceivable. So Krishna's enjoying for 1 kalpa dancing and enjoying with his millions. Koti, 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 kandapa koti. We sing every morning. We glorify Krishna's Venam Kvanantam, his kandapa koti, his dalliance with the unlimited millions of damsels of Braj. Krishna's pastimes are transcendental. Our attempts to imitate him are bereft with all sorts of diseases and misunderstandings and arguments and pain and suffering. So there's a vast difference. I just caught a little bit of Bhakti Purushottam Swami's class, and he was saying that the devotees, they're the best enjoyers. We're enjoying, Krishna's enjoying, but the devotees are the best enjoyers because they know how to enjoy. They know how to engage these propensities in service to Krishna. Sex desire is natural. Srila Prabhupada was once asked, and it might have been at a sannyas initiation, Prabhupada, we're taking sannyas, we're supposed to be free from sex desire. But we see it rear its ugly head. What to do? And Prabhupada, he started telling a story. Maharaj Yudhisthira was questioned by some of the sages. They noted that, Maharaj Yudhisthira, you're living with Draupadi and Queen Kunti, most remarkable, beautiful women. You're living with them day and night. Don't you ever get attracted? Don't you ever get allured? And Maharaj Yudhisthira honestly admitted, yeah. So the sage said, well, what do you do about it? And his answer was, nothing. You control your senses. You understand what is the purpose of sexual attraction. What is the purpose of male and female? What is the purpose of man and woman? And you engage yourself as a servant of Krishna. Even there's the, in Sanskrit, the description of the sage. The sages, they were denoted as urdhva retasaha. And what would you say? Not allurement, an indication of the quality. Prabhupada, he was once glorified that he was loved by everybody and that he was a hero. And he said, yeah, I'm a hero because I've given up sex life. It's an issue. The urdhva retasa means one whose semen goes upwards. The semen is supposed to be used to nourish the finer tissues of the brain. If you waste your semen, then it's like blowing your brains out. You become dull. So these are crux issues within the process of life in the material world, developing spiritual life. One has to learn to control one's senses. One has to learn to control the urges. Vacho vegam, manasa krodha vegam, udara pasta vegam. It's not that you control and you snuff out those urges, but you control the urges. You know how to engage the urges in Krishna's service. So it becomes easy for devotees. Becomes easy for the devotees because they have so much to talk about, so much to think about, so much to engage their senses and their energy in. Whereas for the non-devotees, sex life is their main motivation. Whether I'm getting sex, whether I'm not getting sex, whether I'm going to please my wife, I'm going to work hard, and when I get home she's going to be in a good mood and she'll reward me and we'll be able to engage in sex life and then we'll be able to sleep properly. Marriages break up because sex life is not there. It's actually said in the success of a good marriage in the age of Kali, in the age of iron, is the quality of the sexual engagement. You have a good sexual partner, then you should be happy and satisfied, but it doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that because it's a limited, temporary engagement. It's something that the animals are also naturally engaging in. Again, people like devotees who live in a rural environment, they're very fortunate They're very blessed. You live surrounded by animals and in nature, and you see the natural behavior of animals. We used to have bulls here. No more bulls? 3 bulls. What happens to them during the mating season? They're kept a long way from the cows. They get a whiff of a cow in season. They go nuts. They're snorting and sniffling and racing up and down the fence. And because there are no bulls in the association of the cows, when the cows come in season, the other cows start mounting the cows. So it's natural. It's right in front of our eyes. It's a fact of life. When it's not seen, when it's not viewed like that, then people turn to all sorts of debauched engagement in the name of sex life, virtual sex and all sorts of things. So we're fortunate. We have exposure to these examples, these realities of life. And if that's not enough, then we've got the scriptures to back it up. Even we were hearing early on in this volume about the ashram, the hermitage at Bindu Sarovara of Kadama Muni. And one verse describes about the birds and the bees. I've always wondering, how does birds and bees connect? Why is bird and bees for the uneducated indicate sex life? It's a taboo subject. It's something that, sex education, the father's supposed to take the son aside and describe him, okay, now you've become a man and you have to be careful and this is what's going to happen. And one of my friends, his father described that when he was younger, and his father's now 90, his advice to his son, the son received the advice, his father told him that, son, you're coming to manhood. There's a great field out there. Go out there and just play the field. Get involved with the opposite sex. But as soon as you have sexual intercourse, that's it, it's finished. Then you're captured, then you're lost. So that was his advice. Son, birds and bees, don't have sex. Everything else but don't have sex. So it's taboo. The non-devotees, people without spiritual knowledge, they speak about it in covert terms under the covers, and it's engaged in an illicit fashion. They don't know what to talk about. Whereas devotees don't engage in illicit sex, and they can talk unlimitedly about it because it's natural. It's natural. The adiras, the ultimate relationship in the world is in the spiritual world is the relationship between Krishna and his parts and parcels, the loving exchanges. I'll just read a couple of excerpts which I came across when I put in a search. Interestingly, I put in the search Kama Sutra, and throughout the books that I have access to, there's only 3 references. And one time when Kama Sutra came up was in Miracle on 26 2nd Avenue. And that was in reference to Mukunda Maharaj describing how when he first moved out of home, they moved into with Janaki, and they were engaged in modern life, seeking the truth, and they said that the sentence said that good knowledge of the Kama Sutra. We had good knowledge of the Kama Sutra, so it was popular. But what can you do with it? Actually, at our studies in Mayapur, the topic of Kama Sutra came up, and it was described that, it's a scripture. It's describing about how to enhance your life, how to lead a good life. It talks about the purusharthas, the dharma, artha, karma, and moksha. Karma refers to sense gratification. The ultimate type of sense gratification is they say that the embodiment of sense gratification is the man for the woman and the woman for the man. So that's the topmost type of sense gratification. So how to enhance that? how to get good quality. So it comes back to Dharma and Artha. If those things are naturally there, then you'll be healthy. And the one little drop of information that we were shared from the Kama Sutra was, when cumin seed is in abundance, stock up on it. Ladies, what does that mean? If you want to make your man happy, you've got to cook for him. If you want to cook, then you've got to have good ingredients. So good quality cumin seed at a cheap price. If you can find it, stock up on it. That's the key to sex life. And happy marriage and happy life from the Kama Sutra. So what did we start with? First we start with the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Actually, another quote from the Chaitanya Charitamrita I looked up, and I think it's the only reference in all of Prabhupada's books. There's the term sexologist in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. It comes in chapter 4 of the Adi Lila, and the quote is of Bharata Muni. The section on the Chaitanya Charitamrita is describing Krishna and his affection for Radharani, his mood, his understanding of Srimati Radharani. And the sexologist, his comment was that in the act of sex, the man and the woman enjoy equally. Equal enjoyment. How to measure enjoyment, that's another thing, but there's equal enjoyment. Whereas the Chaitanya Charitamrita, this section was describing that Lord Chaitanya was postulating that actually Srimati Radharani, she enjoys more than me. So, different considerations. The Chaitanya Charitamrita, we're reading from, he is Krishna. He has accepted the mood of the gopis. The mood of the gopis. Again, we glorify, we extol the mood of the gopis, the cowherd girls who are there trying to give pleasure to Krishna. And the unlimited gopis, they all interact with Krishna. Krishna reciprocates with them because they're all individual, and that expands his enjoyment. The mood of the gopis. What happened when we tried to imitate the mood of the gopis in our past history? The Gopi Bhava Club. People were reading about the intimate pastimes of Krishna, and they were trying to imitate them. And if you want to really imitate them, then some of the Prabhus start thinking, well, actually I'm a gopi, and they start wearing saris, and even though they've got a beard and a mustache, they're dressed in saris, and you see these personalities on the train in India. They'll come up and sit on your lap and try and harass you in order to get some donation. So, he is Krishna, yet he has accepted the mood of the gopis. How is it so? It is the inconceivable character of the Lord which is very difficult to understand. Report. Krishna's accepting the part of the gopis is certainly contradictory according to any mundane calculations. But the Lord, by his inconceivable character, may act like the gopis and feel separation from Krishna, although he is Krishna himself. Such a contradiction can be reconciled only in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because he has energy that is inconceivable, which can make possible that which is impossible to do. Such contradictions are very difficult to understand unless a devotee strictly follows the Vaishnava philosophy under the direction of the Goswamis. Therefore, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami ends every chapter with praying at the lotus feet of Sri Rupa and Sri Raghunath, always desiring their mercy. I, Krishnadas, narrate Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita following in their footsteps. And there's a song by Narottam Das Thakur. It is stated, Rupa Raghunatha Pade Hai Biyakuti Kabe Hama Bujabo Se Jugala Piriti. Jugala Piriti refers to the conjugal love between Radha and Krishna, which is called Yugala Piriti, is not understandable by mundane scholars, artists, or poets. It's simply to be understood by devotees who strictly follow in the footsteps of the 6 Goswamis. Sometimes so-called artists and poets try to understand the love affairs of Radha and Krishna, and they publish cheap books of poetry and pictures on the subject. Unfortunately, however, they do not understand the transcendental affairs of Radha and Krishna, even in the smallest degree. They are simply meddling in a matter in which they are not fit even to enter. Sex life is considered sacred, but now it's free for all. It's emblazoned on all of the billboards. The indulgence in enjoying the opposite sex. It's not legal. Another quote from the Srimad Bhagavatam, the 10th canto. I think this is from the chapter, the Rasa Dance, yes. Srila Prabhupada says, Sri Krishna is the absolute enjoyer. Such pastimes as these can never be contaminated by any fault. If anyone other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead tries to enjoy such pastimes, he will suffer the same fate that someone other than Lord Rudra would suffer if he attempted to drink an ocean of poison. Moreover, even one who only thinks of imitating Lord Krishna's Rasa Leela will certainly suffer misfortune. And one more quote from the Tattva Sandarbha of Jiva Goswami. Jiva Goswami, back in the early days there was a devotee, his name was Jiva Goswami, down in Melbourne. He had 5 kids, I think, and I was brahmachari there, and he talked to me, confided in me from his level of experience, and he described in life, it's not sex we're looking for, it's love. So here is from Jiva Goswami. We might ask, and this has got their contradictions, the eternally liberated devotees of Vaikuntha mostly enjoy relationships of servitude and respectful friendship with the personality of Godhead. They have great respect for the more intimate moods of friendships as equals, parenthood, and conjugal love, but do not directly experience such temperaments. Thus, in the Tamil poetry of the ancient Sri Vaishnava Alvars, we see a poet sometimes emulate the moods of a gopi on one page and the mood of Hanuman on the next. It is natural that Vaishnavas in the spirit of Vaikuntha allow themselves to meditate on more than one kind of relationship with God, because while serving the Lord mostly in awe and reverence, they still relish contemplating his dealings with his most confidential devotees. Srila Madhvacharya's philosophy is called Tattvavad, because he emphasized that Lord Vishnu is the absolute truth, and that all the energies of creation controlled and sustained by him are real. But faithful to the viewpoint of the demigods, he also postulated that the demigods headed by Brahma are necessarily the best devotees of Vishnu. This is just a comparison of the different schools of thought. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu presents a viewpoint transcending that of the demigods and the devotees of Vaikuntha, namely the viewpoint of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna himself. Krishna's viewpoint. With due respect to the worshipable Vaishnava Acharyas who preceded Lord Chaitanya in Kali Yuga, only Chaitanya Mahaprabhu could reveal the absolute truth fully in its highest aspects. As described in the Chaitanya Mata Manjusha, Aradhyo Bhagavan Vrajesha Tanayas Tadama Vrindavanam. He taught that the original form of God is Krishna in Vrindavan, and that Narayan and all other appearances of the Supreme Lord emanate from him. Ramya Kachit Upashana Brajamadu Vargena Hi Kalpita. Furthermore, purer and more elevated than the worship offered to the Lord in Vaikuntha or in this world by the demigods is the ultimate service rendered to Krishna by the young cowherd girls of Vrindavan. It's the topmost. But you can't understand it unless you follow in the footsteps of the Goswamis. Following the footsteps of the Goswamis starts with Vacho Vegam, Manasakroda Vegam, Jiva Vegam, controlling the senses, controlling the urges of the senses. Has anybody got any questions or comments at this point?
Thank you, Prabhu. So, when you consider this pastime in such a yuga, very, very elevated personalities. I mean, so elevated the Supreme Personality of God, He becomes their own son. And then you look at the Kali Yugites of this stage, we're requested to only engage in sex life in marriage, only strictly to propagate children and nothing else. And then we hear these pastimes where they go on for hundreds and hundreds of years. So how do we reconcile these elevated souls engaging unlimited sex life while in Kali Yuga we're requested to very strictly follow, like you say, Vachavegam and also, you know. So,
Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he said, if he could guarantee Krishna conscious children, then he was prepared to have sex life hundreds of times. But because he could not guarantee that, then he took to the order of the Naistika Brahmachari. In this day and age, there's so many problems. So, in order to get out of the muck we've got ourselves into, then we follow these principles. But there's a concession. If you can't practice complete renunciation and avoidance of interaction with the opposite sex, then get legally married. And within that ashram, the Grihastha ashram, then in a regulated fashion, when it is possible to conceive, then engage in all sorts of austerities, what's it called, the Govardhana samskar, chant 50 rounds, get the help from your spiritual master, enlist brahmanas to come and perform a whole yajna outside your door, and to pray for the chance to have a very elevated soul to enter into the womb and to enter first into the semen, so that the semen can then pass on to the womb, so that then you can have an exalted devotee. But even exalted devotees, Srila Prabhupada had 4 children, and no guarantee. One has disappeared, another one's in an institution, one is attacking the movement, trying to get facility from the movement. So nothing's guaranteed in this day and age. In the heavenly planets, where you can enjoy unlimitedly, and enjoyment, they're flying around with their demigoddesses, then flying around with the other damsels in the airplanes. Life lasts there for 10,000 years. The last year, their garland fades. Okay, it's coming to the end. And they have one child. So to have a child, it was forestalled. Just like Kadama Muni, he impregnated his wife with 9 children from 9 different forms, and the very next day they appeared. I think we hear about that tomorrow. And then they grew up, and then he was ready to leave home. But Devahuti called him back and said, "No, you haven't given me what I need. I need self-realization." So he said, "Well, actually, there's another entity within your womb who will appear, and it's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Kapila." So it's not necessarily. Sometimes there is sex life and there's immediately a child in the higher realms. Sometimes the child, the birth is delayed. Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha, they were within the womb for 100 years. The mysteries of how sex life works on the higher realms is incredible. Here, we've just got the basic product, and it doesn't work properly. So better to aspire for higher understanding, higher goal of life. And if you can't avoid, then get married and have Krishna conscious children. I think there was a statement from Govinda Swami that within his life he knows he knew that he only passed semen 5 times because he had 5 kids. So it's difficult. It's an issue that has to be dealt with. We prefer to err on the side of caution rather than trying to imitate, as described in some of those excerpts, to try and imitate the Supreme Personality of God. It's not possible. It's just not possible. Here, this is not our home. We're we're like a fish out of water, and we have to try and make the best use of a bad bargain. That's what Bhakti Purushottam Maharaj was describing. We're the best enjoyers. We know how to enjoy. We control our senses. In the early days, there used to be a T-shirt that the devotees were distributing. T-shirt slogan. On the front it said, self-realization. That's really popular. Yeah, I'm going to engage in self-realization. I'll do some hot yoga and all sorts of stuff like that. On the back it said, not sense gratification. It's a difficult subject. It's a rare subject, and it's only rare souls who can actually come to terms with it. Otherwise, there's the repeated cycle of birth and death, and this human form of life is not the best sex life. If you want to have unlimited sex life, then the monkey or the pigeon or the sparrow is much better equipped for that type of activity in the material world. Human form of life means responsibility.
So it's interesting, Prabhupada concludes that that women's sex desire is 9 times stronger. But practical observation shows, in cases of, sexual assault, rape, inter-partner violence, that the male is always the instigator. So when he talks about sex desire, maybe that's something different to lust, or how to understand that?
Yeah, passion. The quality of the sex desire of the woman is different to the quality of the sex desire in man. The man's sex desire is like brief. Wham bam, thank you ma'am, it's all over. Whereas the woman can, her quality of sex desire is security and support. So that's nurtured with foreplay and having a nice house and having all the facilities in place. That's sex desire. The man is at work, he has on his desk a picture of his wife and kids. That's what motivates him, to make them happy. As I said before, that he can come home and she'll feed him and speak to him with sweet words, and they'll be able to have sex. But it's a different quality of sex desire. That 9 times it's corroborated by the Garuda Purana and quoted by Chanakya Pandit. He says, I had it but I don't have it. I've got it in the book at home. In comparing men to women, both in this body, in this material world, unfortunate. But the woman's body is considered to be less fortunate than the man's body. You can't perform so many austerities. Nowadays, the women are bigger and tougher and more able to achieve and perform austerities than most men. It's hard to find a good man nowadays, somebody who's trained up in self-control. But the scriptures say that a woman is twice as hungry as a man, 4 times as, in this, there's 2 different translations. The translation he was saying shy, 4 times as shy. But we always used to hear, in different translation, was 4 times as stupid. Men are stupid. Women can be 4 times as stupid. 6 times as daring. And another translation I heard was 6 times as cunning. And then 8 times as lusty. And that's corroborated by the scriptures here. We can't understand the logic. It's not me speaking, I'm just quoting a verse. The capacity. We used to distribute books or other things up in King's Cross. And the prostitutes were very good customers. And they were just, after a whole night of engagement, all night going, getting paid. They were just, you could see that their bodies were wrecked. They were just falling apart. They were just exhausted. But they kept on doing it night after night. It's just a different capacity. The high quality society girls, they knew how to preserve their energy, and they would engage in a different quality of sex life, like Kubja and Krishna. There's a description of there. The Krishna went to visit Kubja, and how to inspire men so they'll give you money. How to inspire men so they will look after you. So it's an art. It's an act. It's a quality. So Krishna had 16,108 wives. Can anybody tell me how many children, how many were in the dynasty? Yeah, and they had 10. So his dynasty numbered 10 million. So we talk nowadays, we want to expand our dynasty. We've got maybe 30 people in our dynasty, grandchildren and things like that. Krishna had 10 million. He's the most famous. And he had to wipe them out because they would be a burden on the earth. So the quality, and it was interesting, I was reading in the Druta Karma's book, Human Devolution. The concept of sex life is used to describe the origins of life, how we all came about. The scientists are saying it's that the Big Bang came from a little infinite spark because they want simplistic explanations. But the Vedic explanation is much more complicated. And how the world was populated, here we're going to hear about the daughters, 9 daughters. They get married to 9 sages, and they're progenitors. So the progenitors, from Diti came all of the birds. From another of the daughters came all the reptiles. So it's inconceivable, it's fantastic, but there's a hint. Druta Karma describes there's a hint. Pandu, when he was young, before he had children, he was out in the forest hunting, and he heard animals, he shot the arrow and he killed the male, which was a deer. It was actually a demigod or a higher living entity in the form of a deer. And as a result of killing that deer, while he was engaged in the act of union with his wife, he was cursed by them that he would not be able to have children. Or if he did approach his wife to have children, then he would drop dead on the spot, which came to pass. So the scientists, the devotee scientists, they postulate that this is the way the universe has been populated, that these different higher entities, they take the form of different creatures and they engage in certain reproductive processes, and that provides the template, and then they just go about their normal way of expanding the population. So sex, as I said, we can talk about it unlimitedly. It's a very vast subject. The mechanisms, the ins and outs, the details, the variety, the facts of it, because you can engage in sex life, but you don't guarantee a child. That's the purpose of sex life in Krishna conscious marriage, to have a child. And it's frustrating if you can't get a child. Nowadays they go to they do all sorts of means to get children. A woman should have children. A family should have a child. They say a house without a wife, and the wife should be children. A house without a wife is not a home. It's just a place where you bunk down. It's not full. It's not life. Julian, ever reliable. Always got a question.
Thank you for the nice class, Prabhu. Just adding to Manibanda Prabhu's point, I read from somewhere, I think Devaki Mataji's book, she said men's sexual desire is gross, whereas women's is more subtle. Therefore, men's sexual desire manifests in one dimension, more gross way.
One dimension.
One dimension, whereas woman can manifest in multiple dimensions. So
it's said that the man's brain works either the right side or the left side. Whereas the woman's brain can work both right side and left side. One's the emotional side, one's the logical side. So in that way, a woman can be embracing her husband while looking over his shoulder at a lover, and at the same time, in the third dimension, thinking of somebody else who's not present. So she can expand the depth of her attention. Whereas the man, he just goes gaga. He goes, his knees start melting. Here he is with his beautiful wife, and that's it. So what? Sorry, I interrupt. What was your specific question?
I just wanted to add that point. I thought her choose of what the word growth and subtle was relevant to the topic.
Sure. Yeah. As I said, it's unlimited. There's so many different angles you can come at in order to try and understand it. Ultimately, as devotees, we want to understand that we see beautiful. I recite every morning when I'm doing my Giriraj Puja. O Purushotam, I know no shame. Just as the minds of young men are attracted to young women, and the minds of young women are attracted to young men, please let my mind be attached to you. So it's natural that our attraction and attention is there, but please, Krishna, let me be attracted to you. That's why we chant Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu, for your class. Really appreciate just the frankness, openness. I think, these things like sex, where they're kept under the hood, they like a petri dish that's kept in the fridge, and the bacteria grows, and they're better out in the sun, they're better out to be discussed and be open about. One point that an underlying tone in the conversation is you have these desires, and when we read about them, we can be confronted of our own natures and our own shortcomings, and you could feel the word disqualified from engaging in certain practice. At least Maya makes you feel that way. And there's this overarching concept where you shouldn't engage in discussions, for example, of the higher pastimes of higher in the sense of their purer pastimes, such as the Rasa Leela. But is it not right that the only qualification to hear and read about them is Shraddha, not one's actual standing when it comes to sense desire? And in fact, there's numerous examples of Prabhupada saying that if you do read about those pastimes, lust does diminish.
Oh yeah. I think that was something that I stopped at when saying, by hearing these topics, they will be diminished. Your lust and will be diminished. There's a quality to hearing. Those people who then focus on and think this is the subject matter which they should be absorbing themselves in, but they're not mature enough. They haven't realized the first thing, that they're not the body. Then that's described as shouldn't be indulged in. But just like the residents of Vaikuntha, their main focus is awe and reverence, but they are aware of these other topics. So if you're reading, and as you're reading, it just comes up in your reading, and it's like superficial on the side. There's no problems like that. We shouldn't be frightened. I'm delving into a subject matter which I'm not qualified for. No, we should be conscious. We should be aware of these subjects. But to make them the primary focus and think now I'm a Rasika Bhakta, that's wrong. Yeah. Well, the scriptures we should study, we should read them, and just like Srimad Bhagavatam, there's many what they call Shrutifal. There's many benefits. Just like there's also the description of what's the benefits of having a cold bath in the morning. Cold bath in the morning, first thing in the morning. It's freezing cold at the moment, but it's good for you. It helps to cleanse the subtle body, and there's so many other benefits. And if none of those things convince you to take cold bath, then there's an inspiration, a reward. If you take cold bath in the morning, you'll become attractive to the opposite sex. So there's all these different levels of encouragement why we should engage in these things in the proper way, with the proper quality. Guru, do you have a comment?
This is the perennial question, I guess, for practitioners, that we hear all this, what you presented, and we heard it so many times, and Prabhupada says it so many times. But then you find out, whether in ourselves or others, that after so many years, decades perhaps, then there are fall downs, sometimes quite grossly. Gurus, sannyasis, leaders, etc., that we may have thought that for so long they were in such an exalted position. And the question is why? Of course, there are many also, as you said, can talk forever, but in essence, why do you think that keeps happening? It's like plane crashes, and again, another one.
I think Prabhupada describes sincerity as a major faculty, or prerequisite, sincere. Yeah, we engage in these things, and there are people who maintain a position. They don't want to give up their position, even though they're unqualified, because of, prestige. But they're doing a disservice. They're doing a harm. Even there was, it's described in a lot of Prabhupada's writings, that in order to prolong your ability to engage in sex life, then some people have had monkey's glands surgically inserted in their bodies. So they do all these artificial things to try and maintain a doomed facility. So to maintain prestige, then we will do that. And then when the proverbial hits the fan, then ultimately they just have to admit it. They have to suffer. My spiritual master, he fell down, and for 8 years he was down so low, it was like in the gutter. And but because he'd had training in devotional service, he was dancing in a disco, dressed up, all sorts of things. And Boy George came on, and he started singing "Bow Down, Mister, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna," and he immediately remembered, and he raced to the temple and he joined up again. It was big news. Bhakta Charlie's back. But he went down a long way, and he used to say, "I've been down so goddamn low that it looks like up from here." You fall, and you can go down in many lifetimes to a lower form. But because of engaging in devotional service, ultimately you'll come back. So it happens, and it happens, the bigger you are, the harder you fall. It's like a lesson. When you're big, you can cope with that. You can take, and it's displayed. So Krishna, he uses us in so many different ways, and we can't blame it on Krishna. When one of my godbrothers, he left his body, people were saying, or the lecture came afterwards was, you can't say that it was Krishna's arrangement to take him back to the spiritual world. It was a combination of illusion, ignorance, and Krishna as well. It's dangerous area to get involved in. But we have to be conscious, we have to be aware, and we should take shelter of the devotees. We should take shelter and honestly, sincerely inquire and get help. It's natural, it won't go away. Our mind is there, it's our best friend or our worst enemy. We have to learn how to deal with it. And the best way is in the association of devotees. Get support. Okay. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.